The River City once again races past an unhappy milestone. More than 100 people murdered this year. What can change that in the years to come? Jacksonville Sheriff T.K. is with us today. Plus, award-winning local journalist Anne Schindler takes on a new challenge, accepting the job as host of First Coast Connect. Her goals for the audience as she begins with WJCT on This Week in Jacksonville. Thanks so much for joining us today. Public safety always leads when surveys ask about a community's biggest concern. This morning, the man leading the largest public safety department in our area, Jacksonville Sheriff T.K. is with us. Sheriff, great to have you back on the show. Thank you for saying yes, and we're going to spend a little time this morning. I wanted to start, we reported this week that Jacksonville had topped 100 murders this year. We're not even to November quite yet. What's JSU doing about that? Obviously, that's got to be a concern for the sheriff's office.
So, Kent, thanks for having me, first of all. But we are focused heavily on individuals that we know are involved in violent crime. And it's a tough job. It really is. We're looking at trying to get guns out of the hands of those that are prohibited from having them. We're looking at what we call our group violence intervention, which is something I've been doing since 2016. And I think it's a worthy cause to focus on those young men and that are out doing things largely because of disrespect and neighborhoods and groups. So we're focused on that. We're also focused on making sure that we build strong relationships within our community to help us solve these cases, which is extremely, extremely important for us.
So you just mentioned something there. Go a little deeper. It's built on disrespect for those people who are committing violent crimes. What's that mean?
So oftentimes you'll find, and this was a trend that's been happening for a while now, you'll find young men that they'll make rap videos, they'll make songs, they'll start arguments through music or through what they call art. I don't think it's art at all. I think there's a lot of realism or reality connected to it, and they carry out a lot of those things. There's been groups that we know have discussed those things in songs, people that they've shot, people that they've killed, and we're focused heavily on some of that stuff also. It's more than just one thing. We're using our technology to connect cases from maybe years ago where their firearms are used in another case maybe this year. We can connect those cases and get closer to solving those crimes also.
Well, when it comes to dealing with violent crime, so you were, I looked at your experience prior to becoming sheriff less than a year ago. Chief of Investigations Division oversaw operations included homicide, crime gun intelligence center, violent crime, violence reduction, officer-involved shootings, cold cases. So your biography there, your breadth of experience says that maybe you can apply this. How are you applying all that experience to tackling this issue?
It's a big issue. And I think it's an issue that we see in cities all across this country. But utilizing our technology, our experience with dealing with these issues, knocking on doors of individuals that we know are or have been involved in violent crime, and trying to help them find ways out of doing that and doing something different. Fortunately, we are slightly lower than we were last year. We hope to see that continue, but we're using every tool that we have in our tool bag to try to stop this or slow it down.
And you referenced it's tough to solve these. So of the 101 murders prior to our visit today, 62 cases we saw are still open, so not cleared by arrest.
Right. So I'm glad you brought that up, Kent. Homicide cases aren't solved overnight. This is not a television show. This is not CSI Miami.
It always happens in the television show, right?
And you see them with these fancy computer screens and they're moving stuff around with their hands. That stuff's not real. What's real is the hard day-to-day knocking on doors, talking to witnesses, building as much physical evidence as you can. Some cases you can solve in 24 hours. Some cases take a year. Some cases take 2 years. We'll go back, and oftentimes people don't like when this happens, but this is a reality. We'll go back and we'll solve cases from 2020 or 2021 next year, because these cases take a long time in many cases to solve, and we're going to keep working them. They never die. They may grow cold, but that doesn't mean that they're over. A murder case, these cases stay open forever, probably longer than I'm here, if we don't solve it before then.
So hard for families and friends to be patient on that, isn't it?
Of course, and it's fully understandable. it's not easy to tell a family that we haven't gotten to a solution for the loss of their loved one. There's nothing that, I mean, even when you do have a solution, there's nothing really that closes. There's no such thing as closure. There's nothing really that closes that kind of loss. But we do the very best that we can to make sure our families know that we work as hard as we can to solve every case. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the individual, what was happening when it happened, because that family, that victim, they deserve answers. So we consider ourselves a voice for victims.
Sheriff, we've been following a shooting on the city's west side. Just this week, a teen found dead at Valencia Way Apartments, complex formerly known as Eureka Gardens. And I know there had been a bigger crime problem there. We'd seen a decrease over the years. Over the last 2 years, more shooting incidents here. And community members, they say they get frustrated. Law enforcement has to get frustrated at that too, right?
Yeah, but you know, our job is to avoid frustration and stay focused. We don't want people being victims of violence in our community. We don't. It doesn't matter what's happening, but we don't want that happening. So we take that frustration and we turn that frustration into fuel to work to try to get answers for our community. And we're going to continue to do that.
Let me ask about this. Transparency was something you said would change or go to the next level when you became sheriff. So body camera video released this week shows the moments when Jacksonville police shot and killed a man outside of Jacksonville shopping plaza. And family members, they said this man is Randy Sharp. He was 30. As we were reporting this week, officers said that they saw him firing a gun in this parking lot, and then he was fatally shot because police said he pointed a gun at them. Why did you decide to release this video? Why at this time? And is this officer-involved shooting, is this a justifiable case or use of force, at least in your opinion, at this point?
At this point, there's nothing illegal about what the officers did. And they didn't see it, they heard it. They were driving down Blanding Boulevard late at night. They heard the gunshots ring out. They went to where the gunshots were, and then we all know what transpired from there. What prompted me to release the videos, I released all the videos. Within 21 days of any officer-involved shooting or incident, unless we can do it quicker. I think it's important for me to be willing and let people know, good or bad, whether we've done something wrong or not, we release those videos. And we're going to continue to do that because I think it's important for our public to be able to see what actually transpires during some of these incidents. And they're never good to look at. Nothing about it is good to look at. But this is the day and age in which we live, and we're going to show those because what I want to do most of all, I want people to know that they have a sheriff that's willing to stand up and take whatever comes my way, because it's our responsibility to make sure our public knows what their sheriff's office is doing.
You're willing to share body cam video of an incident, even if one of the police officers from JSO is at fault here or did go too far?
Of course. I mean, you delegitimize your desire for transparency and trust if you don't. But I think it's important to show it. And when that arises, we'll show it. And because, like I said, I believe transparency is very important. And I hope people see that I'm willing to stand out in front and people understand that I'm willing to show them what's going on within the agency, because I think it's important to do.
All right. Thank you, Sheriff, and stay with us. Ask you to stay with us, too. We're going to continue the conversation with Sheriff T.K. Waters in just a moment. Stay with us on This Week in Jacksonville.
You're watching This Week in Jacksonville with Kent Justice.
Jacksonville Sheriff T.K. Waters is with us today. Sheriff, I looked up your goals from November last year when you were sworn in, so we're a little less than a full year of taking office here. And I'd like to hear where you feel we stand on some of those goals that you stated. So when you were sworn in, and I pulled this right off the JSO website here, plan to increase staffing levels, focus on violent criminals and gangs for prosecution, build trust through robust community outreach and engagement, make efficient and effective use of taxpayer dollars, and leverage new technology. So these 5 stated goals here. How are you doing on that?
I think we're doing pretty good. So we went to our city council and our mayor, and I played the case, the need for more police officers in our community. And I don't want to overburden the taxpayers, so I want to make sure that we ask for what's reasonable. So we asked for 40 more. We're also seeking 40 through a federal grant, through a COPS grant. We're waiting for an answer. very soon. Hopefully that happens. We're using our technology. We're growing our technology base. We're waiting for some things to be completed in those purchases to help us build better cases and solve these things a little faster. So I think things are going in a really, really good direction.
During campaign time, you know, a year ago plus, one of the things you talked about was technology. What are some of the technologies that you're bringing to bear on law enforcement and public safety?
So well, of course we have ShotSpotter. There are some things that we want to do with our license plate readers, but use them properly and make sure that we use them in the right way when it comes to putting those in places where we need them. What we call, there's a few other programs that we're going to use in our detective division to help manage our phone data when we get from cell phones, those kind of things to help us make connections to cases a lot faster. So all that stuff is some of the technology that we're using, and I think we have to continue to grow because cell phone technology, that all changes like really quickly.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult.
Day by day, it seems like, right?
100%. It's very difficult to keep up all the time, but we're doing the very best that we can and being wise with how we're spending money.
One of the things that you mentioned there, building trust through community outreach and engagement. So is that sheriff's walks? Is it hosting town halls? What are those kinds of things that you feel like are going to change that in terms of community trust?
Well, being able to host the first town hall meeting that we had, where we had over 1,000 people sign up and come and listen, I think was a big part of that. And I answered questions, and we got to answer about 15 questions from the crowd at random. But what we did, I did not say earlier, was what we were able to do is we answered every single one of them through email. So we answered every person that sent in a question. So that was big for us, being able to show, like, we're rebranding. Jacksonville's a new agency, JSO's a new agency. We're rebranding our vehicles without extra cost to the taxpayers. It was simply, we took a Ford product, standard color, bought it, and we put decals on it. And we were able to do that without spending any extra money. So doing those kind of things, transparency is huge. I think with what we've been able to accomplish, held myself to a standard, 21 days at a maximum before we release body cam footage of officer-involved shootings. And anything else that comes up, I believe we try to fill our public records requests quicker. I remember one in particular was done overnight because we got a request and we try to make sure that goes out. So it's very important to do all those things, and all that becomes a part of building trust and having a better agency, more answerable to our community.
How does this factor into this? Sheriff, you told us this week about a Jacksonville police officer who was arrested, suspended without pay, Officer Justin Marino, and we saw he made an appearance in court this week. It was a DUI charge, told that he drove his patrol car while drunk, and basically it seemed like maybe a domestic issue was happening there when the officers arrived. Why is that important to release that, to share that with the public? Is it to say, hey, we're going to be transparent even if it doesn't feel good, doesn't look good for JSO?
100%. So I was elected by the city of Jacksonville, the people of this county, this city, to represent them and run this agency day to day. And if that means a police officer violates a law or a corrections officer violates a law, then we're going to arrest him for it. And we are going to share that with our community, just as we will drug dealers and huge drug arrests or murder arrests. We're going to do the same thing in that situation, because I think really by doing that we're showing that listen, the good, bad, and the ugly. We'll show it because it's important for people to know that we are an agency that's above many across this country, and we're going to continue to do that by building transparency and strong relationships with our community.
How does it feel to another officer in JSO when one of your own, because I understand do I have the count right? Are there 5 police officers that you've had to arrest at JSO?
5, yes, sir.
How does that feel to other officers?
5 that we've arrested. I think there's been a couple that are out of county.
Out of county. What's that? How does that feel for somebody who's not breaking the law, who's wearing the badge on, or doing all the right things?
I think they understand. I think they know that it's not, we're not picking on people. It's just we have a standard, and the standard needs to be met. And if you violate that standard, me included, then you're going to have to answer for it. You're going to be held accountable. And I think morale is pretty high in the agency.
Is it higher than it was before some changes that you've made?
It's hard to say, but I've been hearing from around the agency that people are excited about the way things are going. So I don't think folks feel like they're being targeted, it's just don't do it. I mean, we just held roll calls, joint roll calls about 3 or 4 months ago where we addressed the issue. Let's make sure that if people go out and they have a good time, and make sure you don't get behind the wheel of a car. If you do, there's going to be problems. You're going to be held accountable, and that's what we should do as an agency.
Sheriff T.K. Waters, I appreciate the time this morning. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So 2 weeks from now, Clay County Sheriff Michelle Cook is going to join us. She's in the third year of her first 4-year term. So join us. That's coming up November 12th at 9 a.m. All right, stay with us. A journalist taking a new role in Northeast Florida media, Anne Schindler, joins us just a day from taking over on First Coast Connect. Stay with us on This Week in Jacksonville.
You're watching This Week in Jacksonville on Channel 4.
Thanks for staying with us today. So starting tomorrow, First Coast Connect on WJCT has a new host, and this is her. Welcome to Anne Schindler today, official permanent host starting tomorrow, Monday, October 30th. Congratulations. I know many of our viewers know the show. If they don't, how would you explain to them what they get on First Coast Connect?
Well, it has a long, rich legacy. It's been around for a number of years, founded by Melissa Ross, most recently run by Al Letson. But it's a call-in show. It's an hour long. It's from 9 to 10 every day of the week, Monday through Friday. And it is a conversation with the community and sort of the power playmakers and the people that are making things happen. It's an opportunity for the community to connect with those people and for, the listeners to get abreast of what's going on and who's involved.
So as I look at your experience here in Jacksonville, and as a journalist, you've won a regional Edward R. Murrow Award, investigative journalist, multiple Emmys, other awards as well. You're going to bring that kind of investigator kind of focus to the show?
I hope so. I think one of the things that's really going to be fun is using some of my reportage skills and then making those the topics of some of our programs so that I'm able to kind of participate in the discussion, not just as a filter for people who are connecting through the show, but also through some of my original reporting. But I haven't even had my first day yet, so there's a lot to shake out still.
Yeah. How long has this been in the works? Was this a whirlwind? We know that Melissa Ross left beginning of June, really, to work for the new mayor. Has this been under consideration for a little bit for you?
Well, it was sort of slow and fast because, Al Letson was an interim host, and the expectation, I think, was that he'd be here until the writer's strike was over, which could be January, February, and then it resolved. And so I think that the timeline, although we'd been having sort of a little discussion, ramped up considerably.
Yeah, what was the big draw for you, considering you've had different roles here in media in the city? What was the big draw to do First Coast Connect?
I think it's going to be a good stretch for me. And I've done print media and I've done now broadcast journalism, but this is my first radio opportunity. Yeah. And it's also, being able to host a show and really kind of own that show. I mean, like you have here, it really is a different kind of opportunity to break out and make it your own.
And a big feature of the show the past decade or more has been the call-ins. Anything maybe nerve-wracking about that? Or are you looking forward to that? Because a caller can go wherever they want to.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's going to be a whole new thing. Doing live interviews is going to be a new challenge for me. I'm not accustomed to that. But it's going to be invigorating. I mean, it's kind of part of the propulsive nature of that show that anything can happen. People can call in. They can give you all of their candid feedback there's no
candid feedback, yes.
They're very invested listeners at public radio, and so I'm expecting to get an earful for sure.
So Florida Times Union this week first reported that the mayor's office awarded a $300,000 no-bid contract for lobbying to a firm where the owners had contributed to the mayor's campaign. So I think, those are the kind of stories as investigative journalists we would go after. Is that the kind of thing, a kind of topic that you'll bring together for First Coast Connect?
I think we're going to be looking at hard topics. I've already been, booking into next week for our first shows, and we're taking a lot of really hard stories, hopefully taking the time to explore them. As you well know, truth is complicated, and getting to the truth takes time sometimes. And so having a little bit of a long-form platform to discuss the issues and to really get into the context and how we got here, that's going to be a big part of what I hope to bring to the show.
Yeah, if I can reflect on that. Yeah, it's different when you've got in our case, a 30-minute show versus I've got a 2-minute package that I put in the newscast. But it's still, you've got to bring all these different things into narrow focus and make it understandable, right?
Yeah, I mean, something that you've focused on in the past is just how many newcomers we have to this area. And so what I think this is an opportunity to do is to offer people a chance to see how the news developed, where things were, you know, why we're at this point that we're at, and provide that context so people have a better understanding of the issue itself.
Anne Schindler, I think you're going to do great. It's great to get to visit with you about this, and I think a lot of the folks who have listened before are going to keep listening and then tell their friends we got to listen to. So thanks for the time today.
Thank you.
All right. So This Week in Jacksonville airs each Sunday morning at this time. And so next time, we're focusing on local, state, and national issues. Chris Hand is joining us once again. He's our monthly Hand on Government segment that we're going to do. I'm Kent Justice. Thanks for watching on air on Channel 4. You'll find us on the CW17 as well, and online at news4jax.com and streaming on News4Jax Plus. But before we say goodbye today, we want to let you know that we've launched a brand new version of This Week in Jacksonville called Business Edition. It's a streaming podcast that focuses on economic development in the River City and our region. This week's episode looks at a change in real estate locally and why it may be trending toward a buyer's market. You can find new episodes every Thursday at 9 a.m., and you're going to find it right now on News4Jax Plus under the channel This Week in Jacksonville. You also find This Week in Jacksonville Business Edition available wherever you find your podcasts, like Stitcher, Apple, Spotify, or Google. Have a great week.
See why every day more people are choosing News4Jax, Northeast Florida and South Georgia's #1 source for local news.